Welcome to Innovation Pulse, your quick, no-nonsense update covering the latest in startups and entrepreneurship news. Firecrawl, backed by Y Combinator, is advancing ethical web scraping, while Cohere's acquisition of Ottogrid marks a shift towards private AI deployments. After this, we will dive deep into the challenges and advantages of open-source startups with Yakov Lasker. Firecrawl, backed by Y Combinator, is a startup focused on providing a web crawling tool that scrapes data from websites specifically for use with large language models, LLMs. Unlike many other web crawlers that can disrupt websites, Firecrawl aims to implement guardrails such as honoring robot.txt settings and scraping data only once, which can then be shared. This ethical approach makes it a unique player in a controversial space within the AI ecosystem. The startup is currently looking to hire both AI agents and humans, setting aside a $1 million budget for this purpose. Job postings include roles for a content creation agent, a customer support engineer agent, and a junior developer agent, with each role paying $5,000 per month. Firecrawl aims to autonomously produce engaging content, manage customer inquiries efficiently, and handle development tasks, demonstrating its focus on automation and efficiency. Founder Caleb Peffer envisions a future where engineers operate armies of agents, indicating that while AI cannot replace humans entirely today, it can significantly augment their capabilities. Cohere, an AI startup, has acquired Ottogrid, a Vancouver-based company specializing in enterprise tools for automating market research. Ottogrid, originally launched as Cognosys, offered a platform with a native table interface and AI-powered document analysis, enabling tasks like extracting website data directly to spreadsheets and enriching sales lead lists. Despite Ottogrid's success in raising $2 million from prominent investors, including GV, Google Ventures, and Replit and Versal CEOs, the company will sunset its product to integrate with Cohere's platform. Cohere's acquisition of Ottogrid is part of a strategic shift towards private AI deployments in sectors like healthcare, government, and finance. With its new focus, Cohere aims to enhance automation and data enrichment capabilities through Ottogrid's technology. This move comes as Cohere adjusts its business strategy after missing revenue projections by 85%, although it recently reported an annualized revenue of $100 million. Ottogrid's integration will primarily support Cohere's new application, North, a ChatGPT-style tool designed to assist with document summarization and other knowledge work tasks. And now, pivot our discussion towards the main entrepreneurship topic.
Welcome to Innovation Pulse, the podcast where we dive deep into the strategies and stories behind today's most innovative companies. I'm your host, Donna. Today, we're going to explore the unique advantages and challenges of building an open-source startup. While many companies keep their code under lock and key, others are finding success by making their work publicly available. What drives this decision, and how does it impact everything from product development to hiring? To help us understand this fascinating business model, I'm joined by Yakov Lasker, an expert on open-source business strategies. Welcome to the show, Yakov.
Thanks for having me, Donna. I'm excited to dive into this topic. It's something I'm deeply passionate about. Open source has transformed from a purely technical approach to a comprehensive business strategy with far-reaching implications. I'm looking forward to your questions.
Let's start with the basics. Many people might wonder why a company would choose to make their code publicly available. What makes open source a compelling strategy for startups?
At its core, being open source immediately distinguishes you from the crowd of closed-source competitors. In a world where software products are rarely entirely original, everything is essentially a remix. This differentiation is invaluable. We've seen countless successful product launches riding this wave, particularly when positioned as an open-source alternative to established players. This differentiation attracts two key groups: open-source advocates who are dedicated to seeing open-source succeed and actively promote such products, and buyers who have been burned by closed-source options. These buyers appreciate the transparency, freedom from vendor lock-in, cost savings, and ability to try products more easily that open source offers.
That's fascinating. You mentioned differentiation as a key advantage. Could you share how this translates into real-world traction for startups?
Absolutely. Take PostHog as an example. Launching as open source product analytics was instrumental in helping them get their first 1,000 users. Just a couple of days after posting on Hacker News, they reached 300 deployments, and with some modest Twitter promotion, their repository started trending on GitHub. This immediate swell of interest was directly attributable to being open source. The momentum continues beyond the launch phase too. While there are many reasons customers might choose an open source product, being open source remains a primary driver of signups for many companies. The word-of-mouth effect is powerful. PostHog, for instance, has over 700 brand mentions that specifically reference open source.
Beyond marketing advantages, I understand open source can also impact a company's ability to attract talent. How does being open source influence the hiring process?
Being open source creates a unique advantage in the talent market. Engineers can see exactly what they're getting into before they start. They can explore the code base, observe how often the team ships, review the PR process, and more. They also know their work will be public and meaningful, not hidden away behind corporate walls. For their future career prospects, they'll have real features, code, and pull requests they can showcase. This transparency works both ways. Companies can identify people who are already familiar with their code base and domain, while candidates get an authentic preview of what working at the company is actually like. There's a reduced risk of expectations not matching reality. Some companies even hire directly from their contributor community. PostHog found one of their earliest employees, a data engineer from Uber, simply because he had starred their GitHub repository.
Trust seems to be another major theme when discussing open source. How does having publicly accessible code build trust with users and customers?
Open source is particularly powerful for building trust with developers, who tend to have strong BS detectors. Instead of vague promises like, "Trust me, we're working on it," open source companies can point to actual issues and pull requests that demonstrate real progress. This transparency extends to decision-making processes too. The reasoning behind product and technology choices is visible to all. The trust extends beyond just code. Potential customers can see pricing and the entire sales process without hiding behind "request a demo" buttons or mandatory calls. Employees benefit too, with transparent compensation and benefits information. But this trust creates an implicit agreement that shouldn't be taken lightly. The company is expected to remain transparent and consistent, and breaking this agreement can generate more backlash than if the company had been closed source from the beginning.
I'd love to hear more about how open source impacts product development. How does opening up your code affect the feedback and contribution dynamics?
Open source creates an interesting paradox. While many startups struggle with a lack of people who care about their product, open source startups often face the opposite challenge: an overwhelming amount of support through feedback and contributions. The key is channeling these contributions effectively, especially since direct code contributions might be challenging for outsiders. Smart companies find multiple ways for people to contribute beyond code, making feature requests and roadmaps public, enabling website contributions, or even offering merchandise to recognize valuable input. At PostHog, roughly 10% of pull requests on their website repository come from external contributors. These diverse contributions help companies ship products that are both more polished and better tailored to users' actual needs.
We've talked about several benefits, but open source can't be all upside. What are some of the challenges companies face when choosing this path?
Monetization is often the biggest challenge. Every open source startup struggles with finding the right model. Enterprise plans, paid self-hosted plans, cloud hosting, or some combination. Most companies evolve their approach over time. PostHog, for example, settled on cloud hosting as their primary business model, which allowed them to build a sustainable business while continuing to offer a free product. The breadth of PostHog's product suite actually made this decision easier as hosting their platform became quite complex. They now offer a generous free tier on their cloud platform, with over 90% of companies using PostHog completely free. With some exceptions, this is predominantly why people want to self-host in the first place, to avoid costs as they scale.
That makes sense. Beyond monetization, what other less obvious challenges do open source companies encounter?
Support costs are a significant challenge that's often overlooked. Because open source projects offer code for free, people frequently expect support to be free as well. This can lead to maintainer burnout as they deal with a flood of support requests without corresponding resources. PostHog experienced this with their former paid Kubernetes deployment, which became too complex and difficult to debug remotely. The support burden was consuming a significant amount of their engineering resources and delivering a poor experience for users. Eventually, they made the tough decision to shut it down, provide migration options like their free Docker Compose alternative, and redirect engineering resources to making their cloud version work better for former Kubernetes users through features like SOC2 compliance.
Interesting. It sounds like there's a delicate balance between free offerings and sustainable business models. Does this create any tension for open source companies?
Absolutely, one of the most difficult tensions is the risk of competing with yourself. It can be challenging to balance a free open source product and a paid, hosted option. No matter what approach you take, you might face allegations that you're intentionally making the open source version worse to drive cloud adoption, whether that's true or not. Even 5 years in, companies like PostHog are still figuring this out. Their product has become more complex to host, even for their own infrastructure team of 5 people. While they continue to offer a generous free tier, many users still want to self-host and find it increasingly difficult to do so. Finding that balance remains an ongoing challenge.
How do open source startups typically evolve their open source approach as they grow? Do their priorities shift?
What being open source means absolutely evolves as companies grow. It often starts as a product differentiator, but typically evolves into something more fundamental, a core part of the company's culture and business strategy. For many successful open source companies, the definition broadens beyond just code. PostHog, for instance, embraces a broader definition than most. They believe open source isn't just about the code you write, but your overall culture. They strive to be open source in multiple dimensions. Their handbook, roadmap, and even their marketing content are all publicly available. This comprehensive approach makes it easier to be consistently open source when your code isn't the only thing you open up to the world.
Let's talk about licensing for a moment. How do open source startups approach this important aspect of their strategy?
Licensing is a critical consideration. Many companies use a hybrid approach. PostHog, for example, has most of their code under the MIT license, but some parts are under a separate enterprise license. This approach is sometimes called open core, rather than purely open source, though definitions vary. What's most important is setting clear expectations about how open source works at your company and maintaining consistency in your licensing approach as you grow. Breaking expectations around licensing can damage the trust you've built. PostHog has kept their licensing consistent as they've grown and has no plans to change it, which helps maintain that community trust.
We've talked about code, but you've mentioned that open source extends to other aspects of business. Could you elaborate on how this transparency manifests beyond the code base?
Open source principles can permeate every aspect of a company, For employees, everything from compensation to benefits to ways of working might be detailed transparently in a handbook. This helps new joiners know what they're getting into and ensures everyone gets treated with fairness. For users and customers, transparent decision-making means companies can share why they made certain product or technology choices. Being secretive about these decisions isn't typically a source of competitive advantage. Organizations like PostHog take this further by making their feature requests and roadmap publicly visible, allowing people to vote on and comment on features they'd like to see next, which also helps identify potential user interviewees and beta testers.
How do open source companies typically maintain the community ethos while still running a for-profit business?
Successful open source businesses recognize that maintaining the community ethos requires consistency and communication. They're clear about their business model and how they make money, but they also provide genuine value to the community. For example, ensuring that a generous free tier exists that solves real problems for users. They also find ways to recognize and reward contributions outside of direct payment. PostHog, for instance, has a culture of giving out merchandise to contributors. Anyone on their team can award a merch code, and merch them is a common response to seeing a great contribution. These gestures maintain the community spirit while acknowledging that the company still needs to pay its employees to do the heavy lifting of development.
Let's talk a bit about self-hosting, which seems to be a common desire among open source users. What challenges does this present?
Self-hosting can be both a blessing and a curse for open source companies. On one hand, it's a powerful feature that attracts users who want control over their infrastructure. On the other hand, it can become increasingly difficult to support as products grow more complex. PostHog acknowledges that their product can be tricky to self-host due to their breadth of offerings, though many have managed to do it. Finding the right balance is tricky. Some companies, like PostHog, dedicate specific teams to improving the self-hosting experience. Their DevX team is working on unifying the development environment with self-hosted deployments to make this better. But it remains a significant engineering investment, especially as products grow more sophisticated.
You've mentioned some perceived downsides that rarely materialize in reality. Could you elaborate on some of these misconceptions about open source business models?
One common fear is that having your work publicly available means it will be heavily scrutinized and criticized. In reality, most people will never see your code, and your coworkers will almost always be tougher critics than the community. The benefits of transparency far outweigh these mostly imaginary downsides. Another misconception is that open source means giving everything away for free. Successful open source businesses have proven that you can build sustainable, profitable companies while maintaining open source values. It requires thoughtful business model design, but companies like PostHog demonstrate that it's entirely possible to combine open source with commercial success.
As we wrap up, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the future of open source startups. Is this approach becoming more or less viable in today's business landscape?
Open source is becoming increasingly viable and valuable as a business strategy. The transparency it offers aligns well with modern expectations from both developers and business buyers. We're seeing more successful companies built on this foundation, and I expect this trend to continue. What's evolving is how companies implement open source. We're seeing broader interpretations that extend beyond just code to encompass company culture, decision-making processes, and community engagement. The most successful open-source startups will be those that authentically embrace these principles while building sustainable business models. It's not just about opening your code. It's about opening your entire approach to building products and companies.
This has been an incredibly insightful conversation about the nuanced reality of open source startups. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today, Yakov. For our listeners who want to learn more about open source business strategies, where would you recommend they start?
Thanks for having me, Donna. For those interested in exploring this topic further, I'd recommend studying successful open source companies like PostHog, Elastic, or HashiCorp to understand their approaches. Beyond that, engaging with open source communities, whether as a contributor or simply an observer, can provide valuable insights into how these ecosystems function. The best way to understand open source is to experience it firsthand, so don't hesitate to jump in and participate. We've explored how Firecrawl is innovating web crawling with a focus on ethics and automation, and discussed the unique benefits and challenges faced by open source startups as highlighted by Yakov Lasker. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with your friends and colleagues so they can also stay updated on the latest news and gain powerful insights. Stay tuned for more updates.